What is going on, guys? Welcome to today's video. In this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Fergus Crawley on his recent achievement of hitting a 501 pound back squat, running a sub 5-minute mile at 4 minutes 58, and to top it off, he did a marathon afterwards. Absolutely incredible achievement. So in the video, the footage is dropping out a little bit because it was over Zoom, so the internet connection was a little bit shaky, so please do bear with it. We dive very deep into his training schedule, his plans for the future, what motivates him, and we cover a lot of different topics, including the subject, a really important subject, of mental health as well, and how Fergus uses fitness as a way to overcome those challenges. Absolutely amazing to speak with Fergus, and someone that I consider a good friend now. We are going to be meeting up and doing some events around some charity work with Movember coming up. Guys, if you're enjoying the content, please do consider hitting that subscribe button, and I hope you enjoy the video. How are we getting on? You alright?
Hello. Can you hear me all right? Yeah.
How are you? You alright?
Yeah, not bad at all. Just sort of head back down to the family house in the Wirral, funnily enough, northwest at the moment. Girlfriend's learning to drive, and it's about half the price down here, so we're here for a fortnight while she learns to drive, and I can work from home at the moment, so it's worked out quite well, actually. How's your end?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what, do you actually work full time as well?
Yeah. I work for Vivo Barefoot full time. Yeah.
Where'd you work, sorry?
Vivo Barefoot, the shoe company.
Ah, right. Okay, good. So I was keen to. I want to kind of get an insight into a lot of different things here from your challenge, but like I think just to kick off first of all, mate, that is what it's just like. It blows my mind what you've done. Like it's just insane that.
Hey, thank you. I guess yeah. It is.
Hit those numbers that are just completely opposite ends of like the fitness spectrum, and yeah, insane. So how did it feel when you were doing it?
Well, I don't know if you saw my most recent the sort of match report post that I did, but I obviously knew. So the background is obviously there was a garage gym review post that was put up probably in April that one of my friends and a few others tagged me in. It was like basically who's going to be the first person to squat 500 pounds and run a sub 5-minute mile. It's been talked about 15 years, And there were loads of people commenting all this, and then I basically thought, you know what, there's no better time to give this a go, because I'd just been training for a powerlifting competition for fun that was going to be on April 18th, while simultaneously training for the Keltman Extreme Triathlon up in Torridon. So I'd been balancing those two things, and then thought there's no real better time for me to give this a go. All right, okay. So I basically went to it. I then got inside my own head massively, because my strength with my squat has always been so hidden until I'm tapered. I just had zero confidence on the squat. Like I'd got slammed by 4 weeks ago. Basically just started descending and just thought, dumped it, because my lower back just couldn't hack it. But even though I know from my powerlifting history how much fatigue affects me, I just still got inside my own head. So come the actual morning, I hadn't told anyone other than friends and people that were sort of really supportive that I was going for it that day first, before I said, right, go time. But I was confident on the mile, and I was actually more confident on the 5-hour 50K than I was on the squat going into it. Somewhat naively now, because physiologically there was a whole lot going on. But the squat was just like just like any old powerlifting competition as well. It kind of felt very normal to me in that sense. And low rack, sort of a different environment, calibrated plates, etc. Kind of longer rest periods, caffeinated up to my eyeballs, chalk flying around the place. So I felt kind of in my element there. And the squat just went really well. And then
you do the squat
got to Pit Reevy, which is not fun. Yeah, squat first. There's not a chance I would have been able to squat over 140, I don't think, after the mile. I was just done.
I think Adam
was completely ruined. I was on the floor for about 25. Yeah, which it was mad for me, really, because I squat done in my hips and my hip flexors and lower back after the mile. But I think partly down to the fact I was running in spikes as well, probably a bit more pressure on my lower back. And I couldn't comprehend around, to be honest, but you got to place your strengths on this sort of thing, don't you? And there was no blueprint on which way you should do it. So
I think you know in your own,
it worked.
Your own physiology and your own kind of capabilities to where you know what order you're going to do things in and what's going to work. But I think obviously you're not going to do the marathon first before you did any of that sort of stuff. But
no, that'd be foolish, I think, to say the least. But I mean, any other day, sort of just stepping out to do a marathon isn't the sort of thing that'd faze me because of the training that I've done in the past. But I mean, sort of skipping to the end a little bit, the marathon. Well, obviously I set off for 50k. I was on pace until halfway, basically, to be sub 5, but then just started to get these little twingy cramps. And I mean, I'm not someone that suffers from cramps normally. Never had an issue with them. Done Lanzarote and man, didn't have any problems there. And that was 28 degrees the whole way around. Single salt balance was easy to manage. So I've got enough experience to sort of know how to manage my body going into this But looking back, I think it was just how fried my physiology and energy systems must have been. They just didn't know what to do. And it would have been interesting having some tech hooked up to me on blood volume and all that stuff, but it was just me, a mountain bike, a couple of GoPros and a hydration vest afterwards. But it was an experience, put it that way.
It's just, honestly, it's amazing what you've done. And like for Adam, what he's done as well, it's just incredible. Because me and my friends, he's actually the nutritionist for the British Olympic swimming team, that like Loughborough and all that sort of stuff. So he's quite clued up. And he said the only time he ever saw people do those numbers on a squat was when he worked at the Scottish Rugby, like when he was doing the nutrition for them. And we were just like, you know, his back squat's 160, and mine's obviously not anywhere close to any of those numbers at all. But we were just like, this is just insane that like my best PB 130. And yours is 100 kilograms or thereabouts, like heavier. I just couldn't even imagine an extra 100 kilos on top of that. I'd probably do the 5-minute mile with good training and stuff like that. But it's just incredible.
I think out of all the three, the squat's probably the most sort of not unique, but the one that takes the most years to get to.
Yeah,
but I've kind of had that in the bank since about 2015. I mean, I've lost it for a while in the last year. So I tore my MCL at the end of 2018, and then spent 2019 basically focused on rebuilding that strength and endurance stuff. But then my squat was sitting back around sort of 180, 190, sort of December time, before I was training for my ultra. And then just thought I may as well do a powerlifting competition alongside training from the Keltman, because the November charity fundraising stuff I do is sort of the end of the year, and then the Keltman was in June, so that seemed like a bit of a gap. So I'll chuck a powerlifting competition in there just for fun, because the reason I stopped is because I stopped enjoying it. I was traveling a long way to get to it, and had the right environment to make me enjoy it, and I just couldn't be bothered anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, it does get like that, doesn't it?
I enjoyed getting back into it. Just the black and white objectivity of strength is what I so again, but that was a strange thing. I said on the morning of the Sunday, I was like, I never ever thought, given that I used to be a 100 kilo husky powerlifter who'd be out of breath at the top of a flight of stairs, I never ever thought I'd even be comprehending being more confident on a sub 5-minute mile than I was on a 500-pound squat. So it's just funny how the tables turn. But again, if you told me in 2017 that I'd be running 100-mile races and things, it'd be mind-blowing to me then. So it's the relativity of it all, which I think is the only real message I want to come out of this, is that I've kind of accidentally been training for this for years, and it was just good timing.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have done the marathon if I didn't feel... Once Adam had sort of taken the crown, I thought, okay, I can now make this a bit more personal to me. And whilst I've got the endurance stuff in the bank and I'm conditioned like that, I may as well try and add something else in there if I'm capable of it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've seen that it was just literally before we jumped on, I was scrolling through Twitter, and I saw the CrossFit Games have just reposted the article from Barbend about you doing this. I don't know if you've seen it yet. reposted that.
Yeah, I've seen it on. I've actually been speaking with their social team. Yeah, I know they've got it on Facebook. They've just shared the Barbend article, haven't they, on
Yes,
Facebook
they
and
did a
Twitter?
Barbend article, and the Barbend article is very good actually because it goes into a lot of the kind of
It
detail
is.
around it.
Yeah.
I think my kind of thoughts on what you've achieved here is that it kind of feels like you've come out the woodwork and achieved something that's so amazing and so like incredible in terms of numbers. And it's like Adam's done it, then you've come along and done it, and it's just like mind blowing that you've managed to achieve that. But I think it'll inspire a lot of people, that maybe thinking, do you know what, like maybe I could do something, or at least a challenge like that. It's going to inspire a lot of people to follow suit and maybe create a good positive trend, I think, in the community, in all communities.
Man, that's all I want from it. Yeah.
It's not just about CrossFit being, like the ultimate sport, or powerlifting being the ultimate sport, or running being like the best, or cycling. Everyone kind of fits in their own domains and says like, I am, I identify with that. That's who I am. Whereas what you've done is you come along and said, well, we can have the best of everything here. We can become good powerlifters. We can be good runners. We can be good endurance athletes, and all these things we can combine them together and just enjoy fitness.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's all I want to come of this, really, is that I've learned how rigid I became in my powerlifting mindset, and actually how negative that was for me as an individual, because it stopped me from doing things that I enjoyed, like playing around a golf, because I'd be like, oh, I've got heavy squats later. And now, I mean, a typical week, I'll be having strength sessions, I'll be having hypertrophy sessions, I'll be swimming, I'll be cycling, I'll be up hills, and I'll be doing everything that I enjoy, but it will be under the guise of training almost.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of variety and rigidity. Sorry, a lot of variety that's missed in the rigidity of a singular focus.
Yes.
Whether that's, I mean, whether it's CrossFit, whether it's powerlifting, whether it's this, whether it's that. Because, for example, taking CrossFit as an example, most CrossFitters won't think, I'm going to go out on a 2-hour steady state run at the weekend, because it doesn't involve anything else. It's quite hard just to do a singular focused metric every once in a while. And again, for a powerlifter, it's very hard for them to say, I'm going to incorporate a squat in a complex of different exercises as a way of conditioning myself metabolically.
Mm-hmm.
And I think now I've just been I've had my sort of stubbornness and that side of things completely eroded. And I just enjoy my training. And the most I've enjoyed my training for as long as I can remember was when I was balancing the powerlifting with the Keltman training, because I was training for an ultra iron distance triathlon, like beyond an iron distance triathlon in the Scottish mountains, whilst slowly building my strength back up. Bench press wasn't really improving, but that's neither here nor there. But I just felt great. And I was doing 3 sessions a day sometimes. And I was just enjoying all of them, because there was so much variety that I was never getting in the pool and thinking, oh, I've got high intensity session in the pool. But I knew that later that evening I'd have a watt bike session. But it's the variety that I've learned to love. And I think for me personally, and so I don't know if you've seen, but I talk about mental health a lot as something that I've experienced negatively in the past. And I think the variety in my training and the opportunities it's given me to explore new places, meet new people, it's only positive byproducts that I've experienced as a result of broadening my spectrum and not getting stuck in the rigidity. I mean, if you're a full-time professional athlete that's making or pushing records and stuff in a singular sport, by all means focus on that. But if you're a recreational participant, there's no need to limit yourselves. And in running, especially running and weightlifting, if we use them as differences, is most runners will turn their nose up at a weight room. Most weight room users will think, 5K, why would I do that? When they're not necessarily, like, it's just a cultural thing why they're sort of diametrically opposed, when they're not. And all you need to do to balance them is program smarter and eat more. That's all it is. Like when you boil it down to it, it's more scientific than that when you break it down. But
you raise a good point, and I think there's a lot of, like, more than what you've done, and I think it's going to have such a positive impact on a number of different communities out there. And I think you've raised a really good point, from the mental health perspective as well, that you have different relationships with different, CrossFit community is a great community to be a part of. Everyone wants everyone to do well. There's no kind of arrogance or anything like that. So there's that culture and ecosystem that exists within that. But there's also, relationships and stuff you have with powerlifters, you know, at the meets and stuff like that, whatever it is that, you know, how you come together at certain events, even bodybuilding, like bodybuilding events, there's different kind of subcultures that happen, and bringing that all together can give you great experiences across a broad domain of different disciplines. And as you say, if you're just a recreational athlete, why not explore all of these things and enjoy all of these things that they have to offer? You know, if you want to look aesthetically good, let's do a bodybuilding comp. If you want to start getting stronger, you know, entering into a powerlifting competition. If you want to get better all round, CrossFit might be the answer. So I think it's great that you've done that, and I think that that's going to spread a positive message to particularly the CrossFit community. You know, that you've got these experiences and you've managed to dive into that and do something that's essentially, I think, has been set by a CrossFit. You know, it's been set by Dave Castro, effectively, hasn't it? And then you've come in and just...
Well, I think it was spoke about in CrossFit Level 1 long before Castro decided to throw in the pull-ups as well, I think, wasn't it? So he said that in 2017, he said that in his book.
Yeah, I think the history that I know is that Castro mentioned it in the very early years, but I think you're right, it's probably been born from, you know, years before that, like you say, like sort of, will we get an athlete to do that? And the answer is yes. And I think it also defies a lot of textbooks out there as well, you know, that physiologically, is it possible? Yes, it is. We've got somebody here right now that has done it. You know, it's fantastic. So.
Yeah, that's the exciting. And again, going back to that, that's why I kind of wish I'd been a bit more data heavy on my marathon, because it would have just been interesting to take notes and sort of be a bit more of a in-depth analysis into how I was feeling, other than the things I was saying to camera for the sake of YouTube video. I just wish I'd taken a bit more notes in terms of the real detailed, I'm feeling this here, because it was almost like I could manage the cramps by just diverting the pain. So I was running with my hamstrings and my glutes at points, and then other points I was running with my quads, and then others I was relying on my Achilles and my feet to spring me more than I was my trainers that I was in, stuff like that. So there was a lot of variability that I've got from basically mixing up trail running, downhill running over the years and stuff like that. So, but I could only do about 15, 20 seconds in each before the cramp would creep up and I had to go back to the quads. So my gait, manipulating my gait was the only way I could keep moving forwards, which for someone who's pretty conditioned aerobically, not as conditioned as I have been in the past, but I'm about to go back down that road. It was amazing that I was just so battered by the mile floored me. And that's definitely what was the issue. But my nervous system must have just been absolutely terrified when I started running, setting off for 50K. Like, what are you doing? Please stop.
You're throwing your nervous system physiology against the wall there in different directions, just like... So the other thing...
I know. That's the... Yeah.
So the other thing that I was keen to find out from... Well, to understand more about you as an individual, training history, we've kind of covered a lot about that. What does your daily schedule look like? I know there's lots of variables, it maybe differs from day to day and week to week and various commitments and stuff like that, but on the whole, what would be kind of an average daily schedule, waking up, you know, and incorporating the sort of nutrition in there as well, general nutrition? What does that look like?
So I will train every day other than Sundays, have done for the past 3 years, more or less. Occasionally, if I'm more sort of strength or volume focused, I'll occasionally take Thursdays off as well, just depending on what the sort of formulation is. But I'll always peak my intensity at the start of the week and peak my volume at the end of the week. So they basically invert as the week goes on. So my heavier sessions, my faster sessions will all be towards the start of the week, and then my lower intensity, higher volume sessions will be towards the end of the week. And that formula is basically how underpins everything. But obviously, if I'm training for 2 separate events, then I'll have double sessions, sometimes triple sessions during the week. I might have brick sessions for a triathlon on the Saturday, but my Saturdays are always my long, low intensity, steady state cardio days. And generally, if I do have double sessions, they'll be on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it'd normally be something like a strength session and a watt bike, or a swim and a strength session, something like that. So it's normally a pretty deliberated effort session on top of a strength session on the days where I'm doing doubles. But food-wise, and I should mention as well, if I'm doing double sessions, I'll always split them up morning and evening. So I'll get up first thing and do that. I try and, if I can, try and do all my sessions in the evening just so I've got fuel in me. But if time permitting, I need to do it in the morning, I've got work to do in the evening, etc., I will do it that way. But I work sort of 8:30 till 6:30 most days as well, full time. So it's easier some days to get it in than others, but it's a big part of my life, so I'll never not get it in unless there's a big, I mean, unless, yeah.
There's a lot of professional athletes, CrossFit athletes, and just athletes in general that don't have full-time jobs. I know they've got commitments, don't get me wrong, like, social commitments and, work commitments and whatnot, but you have a job which pulls you away from a training environment. So you don't have the ability to train between 8:30 and 6. You have to fit those sessions in prior and afterward, after you finish. And we all know that it's not just you finish at 6 and training gear goes on and then that's you done. There's a lot of lead up time to, get into the main session before and after. So that's obviously taken that's a huge amount of, time consumed, on either end of the day. And you're still managing to beat most, CrossFit athletes out there that are doing it full time.
Well, I might try and make the switch at some point, but given that I can't do a single ring muscle up at this stage, then I've got quite a long way to go.
Well, this is the other question I wanted to ask, because I didn't know where your kind of thoughts are with that, because I know that they do wild cards. I mean, to be honest, I don't think that the CrossFit Games is going to probably take place this year, nor would, I don't know whether it would be appealing for anyone traveling or anything like that, but next year, what about the CrossFit Games? You've probably got a year to maybe just get your skills down, gymnastics, ring muscle ups, those sorts of things, write a list, put it on your fridge like Ben Smith and enter the CrossFit Games.
I mean, the thought about the transition has crossed my mind so many times in the past, but whilst I'm doing what I enjoy, whilst I'm working full time for someone else, and whilst I've got big sort of charity commitments every year in November that are sort of pretty integral projects to me as a functioning human being, I'm sort of just happy and content doing what I'm doing at the moment. And whilst, yes, I've kind of gone against the status quo a little bit with this, it's almost been a perfect storm of timing in terms of it was my powerlifting history to get me over the line. And then the marathon coming in the end was basically all the training off the back of training for the Keltman Extreme Triathlon, along with spending every weekend in the hills in Scotland for the past sort of 6 to 8 weeks. So it was, there'd be an enormously long way to go in Olympic lifting, gymnastics, and just general sort of movements that I don't incorporate day to day. Because my approach to weightlifting and training is basically minimal stress for maximum return with programming and volume. So I aim to be as lazy as possible with with what I'm doing, so that it's taking as little away from me as possible in the grand scheme of things, so that I can keep moving forwards, because my training volume is very high for most people at balancing concurrent goals, but that's ultimately years of building work capacity. But it does mean that if I tip that scale 1 week, I'll be ruined for the following week, and I will know about it. And then suddenly when you're training for, I mean, it happened to me training for the mile. When I got pinned by that 220 squat, my sprints that week felt fine, but I just couldn't, my squatting, I just completely tipped the scale and tipped into that sort of nervous system breakdown. But my training volume was massively reduced whilst training for this. And then for the final 2 weeks, I dropped the weekend aerobic volume. So I wasn't in the hills on Saturdays, which helped. I mean, it was just less overall cumulative fatigue. But at some point in the future, I'm always considering the transition, as it were, because I love the environment. I've got a lot of friends in the UK and over in the States that are massively into the community. Group exercise is the best thing to happen to mainstream exercise ever, in my mind. It's the first thing that's made people enjoy exercise for the sake of it, rather than as a punishment or as something that is almost needs to be forced upon someone. I think there's problems inherently, which I sort of reject, especially in some group exercise facilities where it's sort of cookie cutter programming and classes become lots of people in the room being shouted at rather than actually getting any coaching, as it were. But from a personal perspective, I love the community, love the concept. I love balancing different things. I love variety. So it makes a lot of sense. but I'm kind of just enjoying what I'm doing at the moment.
You've
I'm going
got
to
to
push
be
it
ready
as
to make
far as I
that kind of,
can
yeah.
before.
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's just,
100%.
I mean, it's the time as well. Yeah, in the picking up new skills, skill development is something you can program a lot more of because it's not as high in fatigue accumulation. So I'd have to put in a lot more time to do that, and that's where work-life balance starts to get a little bit out the window. So
Yeah,
at some point in the future, I do plan to sort of become self-employed and manage my own time and go into the fitness industry. But that might be 5 years, that might be 10 years, it might be 2 years, who knows? But it's not something that's at the forefront of my mind. I enjoy my job, I enjoy my training, I enjoy the way everything works. So right now, I'm just going to keep sort of building my base, building my strength, and being prepared, being ready to specialize for anything rather than being ready for anything. That's a phrase that's been thrown around before, I think, and I just don't think is quite applicable. But I'm pretty confident that within 3 months, I'd be able to train for almost any specific event that I wanted to do, whether it be Ironman, a fast 5K, this, for example, as case in point, an ultra, anything like that. I feel like as long as I stay injury free, I'm 3 months away from any goal that I want to set myself that's realistic, obviously, in any of the modalities and disciplines that I focus on, which is exciting because I like setting goals, I like achieving goals, and I like the variety of goals that I set myself. So knowing that I'm always 3 months of hard work, doing what I'm told, getting through the bad days, the weeks where fatigue builds up too much, lasting at night, that's just part of the process for me. And I enjoy the process, which is probably why I've managed to get myself over that mile line. Because if I hadn't enjoyed the process, and when Adam had done it, the easier thing to do would have been, oh, well, I'm not first anymore. Why would I bother? But I thought, you know what, you've come so far. It's no less of a goal for you to push for. It wasn't for me about sort of one-upping at anyone or anything like that. It was just an athletic pursuit that I thought, you know what, whilst I'm in the position to do this, I may as well commit to giving it a go. And I kind of enjoyed the competitive nature of it because I'm most of my events are all me versus me. So having someone over in the States that I was kind of checking in on and seeing how they were doing was kind of fun. And he got there first. Hats off to him. Did an amazing job. Squat was beautiful. I still can't believe he did it after the mile. That doesn't make any sense to me. I couldn't stand up after the mile, let alone squat. But yeah, I mean that's why this process has been fun.
You two are both quite humble about your achievements, and I mean that was a good thing to remain humble and whatnot. But you know, maybe I would be reacting a bit differently if I'd managed to do that. It's just amazing, like what you've both done. So, and both very humble as well. So we kind of just getting some questions.
Very different training environments as well, which I find interesting.
Yeah, I think he's obviously within, you know, he's very firmly kind of embedded into the CrossFit world, but he has a background in, you know, the American kind of, you know, strength and conditioning world and sports. They're quite big on that over there, aren't they? And like Rich Froning.
It's just the accessibility of tracks as well. Like I've been jumping fences with my brother to get onto a track. Like not just because of lockdown, but they don't let you film. No tracks in the UK that are publicly owned, because most of them they're all leisure centres. The majority of them, they don't let you film. So we've been hopping fences to get all that, because I don't know if you saw, but my brother, the week before I did it, deadlifted 500 pounds and ran a 453 in the same day as well.
Armin mentioned,
and he's 19 and plays cricket.
Oh,
did he?
Yeah, because I was speaking to Armin Hammer, and I said, as we were speaking, you just done it. Like, I was like, it's on the video that I've just done with him. And I was like, so I was chatting to him and I said, look, this guy here, you need to check him out. Like, you need to have a chat with him. And he's like, I've just followed his YouTube channel because his brother has just done something similar. And so I've been following his journey to see if he could hit it. So he was amazed he had actually managed to hit it. He was like, I can't believe he's hit it. So if you can get in touch with him and have a chat with him.
Yeah, we've been speaking a bit actually, so I'll chase him up on that. I didn't know the context there, but that's cool. That's cool. So had I just finished the mile or just finished the marathon?
Well, I think it was just because my wife had just come in as I was chatting to him. She's like, "You seen this guy Fergus? He's just like done this." I was like, and I was looking at it. I was like, "What? Like is this today? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, right. And then so I jumped on the Zoom with Armin, and I was like, oh, by the way, he's this guy's done that. And then he was like, I need to get onto this. And I was like, she was like, thanks for putting me onto it. And then I looked again, I was like, oh, he's from Edinburgh. And then I looked at the video and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Petrivi. Like, I'm fairly sure that's Petrivi.
Yeah.
And then
we
like, oh,
we actually we were a bit delayed getting started, so I wanted the squat done by 9:30, which we did. I think I did the squat. The timestamp on the video says 9:31 on the file, because I wasn't sure. The whole day is a bit of a blur, actually, and I'm normally sort of in control of filming my own stuff and kind of just figuring all that out. But today I had a lot of people helping me. I always get great support whatever I do, which is amazing. And the whole day was just a bit of a blur. I kind of lost track of time completely. I wanted the mile done by 11:30. I think I finished it just before 12, kind of. But we got to Petrivi, and there was basically the athletics club were kind of using it. I was like, oh God, here we go. Like grumpy old Scottish men gonna tell us off for using their track with a scooter with a GoPro on it. I was like, oh no, this is gonna ruin the whole thing. But they were all perfectly fine in the end once it got a bit quieter. But it just pushed us back half an hour. I was then on the floor for half an hour, and I was the one driving back to Edinburgh as well.
yeah.
Which is the worst part. So I actually had to drive everybody home.
Fatiguing the traveling side of things, just I'd throw in that in. You should put that as part of the actual like achievement. Like you did the back squat, the 5-minute mile, 4:58 mile marathon, and the drive back to Edinburgh.
I didn't include that bit. I didn't think that was as impressive. But honestly, I was getting in the car. After the headache I had, I got in the car and I sat there. I was like, I can't drive. My head is pounding. We found some paracetamol in my glove box, and I was like, okay, that might do it. Had 2 of them, and I kind of felt just enough to drive. But I just, honestly, I can't believe I'm still a bit spooked by how, I mean, the video you can see, that's the first time I can hold my hand up and say, I thought I'd emptied the tank in the past. That was completely emptying every ounce of energy and ATP I have within my body. I was absolutely floored and just couldn't, I was in so much pain. My legs were barely moving. I felt like a limp fish, but I was just so confused at how I felt this dreadful after doing the mile. Because it was just, physiologically, it was a different experience entirely. Because the pacing was awful. My friend Doug, bless him, he's a rugby player who's very fast. He's not a runner. That's the second time in his life he's ever used the track. So I gave him the brief of 1:13, 1:14, drop off and let me go. But it was 1:04, 1:15, 1:20, and then I went 1:18, I think. So not exactly textbook. It got me there, but it was just another thing to deal with. Yeah, it got it done. But I just wanted someone. I don't know, with that sort of thing, again, I can potentially get inside my own head a little bit, and I didn't want to be looking at a watch and feeling like, oh, you're behind, because then I could just set off this sort of chain reaction, and just wanted to stay a bit headstrong and give that responsibility.
Yeah. It's very easy done, like to just, I think anyone at any level, whether it's elite sport, elite athletes that, or just conventional CrossFit, I think it can happen to anyone where you start to kind of tie yourself up in knots a little bit. Out of all the sort of questions, I think it's more a little bit selfish for me to understand from a kind of, as you say, conventional athlete, and what can I apply from your training regimes? What can I steal and bring into my own, lifestyle? But also what other people can do as well. What insights they can get. So, kind of covered your goals moving forward, what you do for a living, daily schedule. The other thing was what inspires you and what motivates you to do what you do. What kind of keeps you in the game? Why do you do it?
Yeah, so I don't know how much of my sort of backstory you know, but the whole reason I sort of got into hybrid training was because I wanted to do something to raise money and awareness for November for men's mental health and suicide prevention. And because I was in London, I'd been there for just shy of 2 years doing a grad scheme, and slowly started to slip back into what I then recognized as depression, having previously suffered in the past. So 2014 to 2016, I suffered from severe depression without acknowledging it, saying it to anyone, not wanting to be honest about my situation because it'd make me seem weak, vulnerable, all the standard masculine traits, which I'm now trying to fight against. And ultimately, in May of 2016, attempted suicide myself. So I got a 14-week-old French bulldog puppy, which is not something I'd recommend to everyone as a solution, but for me, it basically allowed me to get a routine, get a structure, get something to care for, some sense of responsibility back, just like that. And on walks, I was saying things out loud without really cognitively thinking about what I was saying that I'd never said nor acknowledged before. So that just slowly started to make me feel better. Ultimately told my family the following Christmas, so about 6 months later. And then slowly just started to sort of feel more like myself and sort of reclaim lost time, I guess I looked at it. But I was sitting in front of my laptop in London, was working for a big brewery at the time, and was just trying to put hands to keyboard to get some work done. I just got this sort of white noise in my head, and I thought, no, you've been here before, do the right thing about it, acknowledge there's an issue. What were you missing last time? Fulfillment. What do you need now? A sense of fulfillment. So I signed up to try and squat 500,000 kilos in 24 hours for November to represent the 500,000 male suicides every year globally. It's higher now, sadly. But I, long story short, raised 25 grand in my first year for them. And after 126,000 kilos, my MCL and patella tendon sprained. So just over 5 hours. And again, I was on schedule. That was disgusting, that thing. Oh my God. So I did just over 2,000 squats at 60 kilos. About 2 a.m, my MCL gave up and my patella gave up. But as part of training for that, my strength base was up here, my aerobic base was sort of here. So the whole training methodology was basically, you'll lose a little bit here, so you can probably afford to get down there, but your aerobic base needs to go all the way up. So I got back into running, long distance stuff. Like the first time I saw a 2-hour low intensity, steady state, 140 beats per minute heart rate run in my programming, I thought, how on earth am I going to do this? 95 kilos I was at the time, still sort of, I was doing high intensity cardio at the end of my sessions, but I'd just never done a flat out steady time limit go in like ever really. And then basically off the back of that, for the past couple of years, all my training has been revolving around these Movember projects that I've been doing for charity. So I learned to love the variety. I learned to love the incremental goals, because part of the reason I fell out of love with powerlifting was chasing 2.5 kilos extra strength was 12 weeks of work. I was like, I just can't be bothered for 2.5 kilos extra. Whereas now, like, I can just train for 8 weeks and think, oh, I've got a week off, let's test my 5K and I PB by 2 minutes. Stuff like that. It's just like, I've got this variety now, which gives me the freedom to enjoy my training so much more, which is part of it. And then the other side of it is I always want to be doing set the best example I can for other men to take control of their own situation so they don't end up in the situation that I was in. And these projects that I do every year are sort of the focal point of the second half of my year. And the first half of the year, I'll focus on sort of different things. Last year it was an Ironman. This year it was going to be powerlifting and the Keltman. That's been postponed until next year. So Keltman will be next year as well. Might do the powerlifting competition as well. We'll see. But obviously got this done now. But now it's full steam ahead back to very, very long ultra endurance event in November. And I'm basically just enjoying my fitness as much as I can, with the knowledge that it's all building and accumulating towards that second half of the year. And in terms of inspiration, I don't really take any inspiration or compare myself to sort of anyone else, in that I feel very intrinsically motivated to sort of just do what I do. I don't know whether I feel I don't feel duty bound to do it, but I feel like if I'd lived the way I do now and acted the way I did now and sort of approached things the way I do now, I would have been much better off when I was suffering from depression, and ultimately got to a stage where I chose to die rather than to continue to exist. And it's those lessons that I just hope to, exactly as you said before, it's inspiring people to push themselves that little bit further, whether that is a powerlifter going on a short run. That's a huge success. And for me, that's all the inspiration I need to just keep training, because there's been a byproduct from something that I enjoy, is good for me, and can have positive effects on other people as well. That's all I can ask for, really.
Yeah, and I think first and foremost, thank you for sharing. That I think that's it's hugely important for people to understand that it's okay to just discuss this openly and not feel, you know, that they can't share their emotions or feeling, particularly as men, because we can, you know, bottle things up in the way that we're feeling because we don't want to seem weak. We don't want to seem as if we're kind of bothering anyone. You know, we should have our, you know, I don't swear on vlogs, but I will, you know, we should have our shit together, right? But, you know, we don't sometimes, right? We don't have it together. And I think that it is quite moving and quite inspirational in itself. And I think it's fantastic and amazing. And we're not too far away from November or Movember. So kind of as a gesture, you know, I'm going to now, you know, it's inspired me to actually do something for Movember now. Not that I wouldn't do before, I would always do something like grow the moustache and stuff like that, but more because it was on trend as opposed to having any kind of depth of meaning to it. So I think as a result of this conversation, I'm going to think of something to do that's challenging. I've seen that the average CrossFitter guy, that I speak to him quite a lot, he's just done something for battle cancer. I think he's doing that.
Yep, I'm with them down in Devon this weekend, actually, doing their event down in Devon, the Commando Marine stuff,
Yes,
which will be good
what
fun.
those guys are doing is amazing. It sits within that kind of CrossFit community, but it's fantastic to see that you know, that's being pushed forward. And I think that if there's anything that I can do to support anything that you're doing, you know, in the lead up to it, please just let me know in whatever it is, whether it's video editing, whatever, any services.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you. Well, it is in Scotland this year, so there might actually be. Actually, they've all been in Scotland. Other than one, they've all been in Scotland. But this one is this one I'm trying to harness the Scottish community nearby a lot more than I have done in the past. So I will be sending you a message on that.
Definitely, and I'll be here helping if it's videography or anything like that. You know, I'll just help in any way that I can, and I'll also think about something that maybe you can help me think about, something that I can do. It can't be a 227 kilogram back squat though, because that's not going
to happen. Yeah, that's done now, that part. I'm probably not going to be touching that weight for a while. Although I do have a strange inkling. I want to do a max effort pause squat on Wednesday, just because I feel like I might be able to beat my PB in sleeves from when I was a powerlifter. Just in the back of my head, I'm like, that's the one last thing I want to do with this.
Yeah.
I was going to do a beer mile with my brother today, but then realised that the tracks are back open in England, and they probably wouldn't take too much pleasure in seeing a 19-year-old and me come along with 4 beers each and race each other around a track. But it's,
yeah. Well, you never know. They might get involved and have a few beers with you as well.
They might. The world record's 4:15, so it's a serious event, which is it's a strange world out there. But I mean, it's made me enjoy and appreciate a track, and actually the different environments that are required for really excelling in each different discipline a lot more. Because I've done a lot of interval stuff, done all my interval stuff on the road in the past, and it's just so much more complicated, so much more miserable, so much less sort of concerted of an effort. But as much as I've hated my time on the track recently, it really has highlighted to me how important training environment and stuff is. And to be honest, the main reason I've got through all this is because my brother and I's sessions were basically on Mondays with the sole focus of the week. Everything else was assistance. So we'd have our top sets on Mondays, just standard DUP, basically 2 6-week blocks. And then we do all our sprinting immediately afterwards. Those lower body sessions on the Monday, he'd be doing deadlifts, I'd be doing squats. His volume would be slightly lower, obviously, because deadlifts are a bit more challenging. But the rest of the week was just us sort of assistance exercise, tempo runs, all that stuff, which was great. I mean, I don't think I would have been able to go at this with such aggression, and I don't think he would either, without having one another to push through it. Because it's just the track sessions are hard. They're not fun.
Absolutely superb. So I think I'm going to think of something that I can contribute towards the Movember event. I've just been thinking of like a 24-hour event or something like that. You know, just do something for 24 hours.
There's so many things you can do in 24 hours, and whatever you choose to do, it'll be a. Have you done anything before of that length?
No, well, I've never not like I've competed to a relatively high-ish level. I've never got to a point where I've done something that's for charity or I don't know why. I just haven't. I've just never done it, but I've seen other people do it, and like I saw Mitch Adams did his kind of thing for the NHS, and I've been watching other people do it recently, and I've obviously getting more in the content world. And I'm thinking, I should be setting a positive example here and doing something similar, but there needs to be some depth of meaning, which I mentioned before, and I think that our conversation has kind of sparked me to actually, do something to.
Man, glad to hear it. I mean, there you go. That's a very positive byproduct of me getting this squat and this mile done at the very least. So from my end, I can call it a success, whether it was or not. Now that's the beauty of it, and I think that's why the intrinsic sort of motivation that I mentioned before is really important. And from a charity perspective, it's that deeper meaning. Everybody needs to have that beneath the surface desire to push themselves goal-wise, whether it's training, fitness, day-to-day life, or just, I mean, in this case, the charity stuff, because it's much more genuine and you'll push yourself a lot harder. I've struck a balance with it, and it's great for me now. So I sort of almost biasly assume it'll be good for other people as well. And so far, it seems like that's the case in the general consensus.
The video, will go well. Obviously, I'll kind of slice it up into, maybe a 3-part series or something like that. But I think, it would be good to get this shared with as many people, just as, whether it's people who are suffering from mental health, whether somebody wants to do something similar, for looking for motivation, whatever element of, moving that needle forward that individual needs, that hopefully this insight, speaking with you, will allow that, those individuals to push that needle forward in whatever kind of domain or area that they choose, whatever they will get from it. So thanks for coming on. I think you're obviously up here in Edinburgh, so we can, when you're back up in action, we can get a catch up face to face and stuff like that. And
yeah, that'd be great. I'm hoping.
We'll get you following the YouTube channel, and hopefully that's a huge success as well. And
yeah, that's gone well so far. Actually, I mean, I was starting on a bit of a back foot, and I mean, if we're comparing to Adam in this case, it's just it's harder to push things in this day and age without a bigger social following. But CrossFit Games are sharing it on their Instagram as well later today, which will be big. That'll be useful.
Yeah,
but it's just consistency from my end. I enjoy, sometimes I get a bit frustrated with the additional time that social media takes up, but I enjoy the YouTube side of things. I enjoy filming what I do, and I'm in a bit of a rhythm with it now, which makes it easier. So in my mind, if it keeps going, great. If it doesn't, I'm still enjoying it. That's it really. It's
absolutely, and
just keep chipping away.
I'm very much the same. The kind of the whole YouTube thing is to, I'm building digital skills, and I'm enjoying putting content out.
Exactly. That's the biggest thing, isn't it?
People. So all of these things are good things. So it's not something that you can get caught up in the data sometimes and say, well, I want to grow the channel, but we have to kind of realize that the important thing is that we're putting content out there that's helping other people and allowing us to build our own digital skills at the same point in time as well. So there's a kind of the key metric.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's I've massively upskilled.
Meeting new people as well. Like now I've got the channel, I have the opportunity to speak with you, which probably wouldn't have happened if I never had this YouTube channel. And
exactly, that's the good side of social media. There's lots of negatives, but I think it's
I'll leave you to your day, but appreciate your time. It's been absolutely awesome to speak to you and just find out, your training, what motivates you, all of these different things that have got you to where you are. And hopefully, all of this, on the back of your event, more people share your success, and it goes in the right direction for you. So I'll be doing what I can to support it, and your Movember as well. So
Brilliant. No, thanks very much. I enjoyed it, and I appreciate the time. Thanks for the support, and we will be linking up in some form or another for Movember.
We'll get a catch up soon, and just let me know what you need for Movember. Good man. All right.
Perfect. Brilliant. Have a good afternoon, mate. Speak soon. Cheers.
Well, thanks for watching the video, guys. If you did enjoy that, feel free to smash that like button and hit that subscribe button as well to stay up to date with the content. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.